Hello, my name is Carlos Zoéga. I am a Brazilian lawyer, and in this video I'm going to talk about the general precautions you should observe if you decide to buy a piece of real estate in Brazil. Brazil is a big country with more than 8.5 square kilometers. The country is divided in 26 states and a federal district. The legislation ruling the real estate acquisition is the same for the whole country. It is a federal law, which is good. But, of course, we have several local peculiarities to be observed regarding, for example, tax or building patterns. What I mean is that the experience of buying real estate can vary from one place to another. Very important. We don't have in Brazil anything similar to the American escrow companies. That is why examining documents and monitoring payments is so important here. Also important, land close to the country borders or facing the sea requires special attention. We are preparing a video to talk specifically about those issues. Well, after those initial considerations, let's get started. In general terms, it is possible to divide the precautions to be observed in the real estate acquisitions in three basic chapters. Chapter 1, the real estate documents. Chapter 2, the seller's economic and judicial status. And Chapter 3, the negotiation and the contracts to be adopted. Let's talk about Chapter 1, the real estate documents. It is indispensable to carefully examine the documents that the seller has in hand regarding the piece of real estate that is being offered to you. The first document to be examined is the title of acquisition. The title of acquisition is the document granted to the seller when he bought the piece of real estate. Examining the title of acquisition will allow us to understand what type of rights the seller really has in hands. It can be ownership, rights of acquisition, possession rights, or even a mere permission of use, for example. There is a very ancient general principle in law that says nobody can transfer to a third party more rights than the ones that hold in hands. If what the seller has in hands is a mere permission of use, he will not be able to transfer ownership to the buyer. The same if he holds possession rights. Attention, there is nothing wrong with rights of acquisition or possession rights or even a mere permission of use. A person can do an excellent and profitable purchase in those cases too. All I am saying is that the buyer must know exactly what is being bought. Besides that, the detailed examination of the real estate set of documents will permit to detect the existence of possible encumbrances, attachment, arrests, inalienability clauses, mortgage, etc., as well as eventual tax, condominium, electricity, water or telephone pending debts. On the other hand, it is advisable to carry out a feasibility study of the construction through a formal consultation with the City Hall, so that one can know if it is possible to carry out the plans that the buyer has for the property, building, enlargement of the existing building, etc., taking in consideration the local environmental limitations and building patterns for the area. Finally, this examination will permit to check the administrative regularity of the existent constructions, approving building projects, building license issued, etc. Chapter 2. The seller's economic and judicial status. Examining the economic and judicial status of the seller is mandatory to minimize the risks of future unpleasant surprises arising from the unknown existence of creditors and the insufficiency of assets in the seller's equity to deal with the debts. In other words, it is very important to verify if, right after the moment of the purchase, the seller will still have in hands assets enough to respond for his debts before his creditors. If not, the creditor can go after the property you have just bought. Several kinds of research before different public departments will be necessary to detect, for example, lawsuits, tax debts, labor claims, etc. against the seller. Chapter 3. The negotiation and the contracts to be adopted. If everything is right with the real estate documents, if everything is okay with the seller, then you can go forward to negotiate the price and the payment conditions for the purchase. It is fully recommended to divide payment and contract procedures in 2 phases. In order to close the deal and take the piece of real estate out of the market, the buyer makes an upfront payment of 10 to 20% of the agreed price directly to the seller. This upfront payment is done at the same moment that the parties sign a preliminary contract ruling all the details and all the conditions of the purchase. In a second moment, in general 30 to 60 days after the upfront payment and the preliminary contract signature, the buyer will pay the balance and the seller in the same moment that the final deed is signed. It is very common the parties undertake this intermediary period of 30 to 60 days to accomplish obligations specified on the preliminary contract, such as presenting a complete set of documents specified in the due diligence clause included in the preliminary contract, or taking out the furniture that is not included on the sale, for example. Last but not least, it is deeply recommended that you are assisted by a lawyer specialized in real estate field to monitor every step of the purchase procedure for you. I hope this video had helped you. If you have questions, please send them to the email that is being shown here below. carlos@zoegacoelho.com.br. Thank you and bye. Till the next.